Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. This is Afternoons with Monique, recording live in Seattle, Washington, every Thursday at 1 p.m.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm Monique Lee, host of Afternoons with Monique. Today, I have the pleasure of inviting Mr. Michael Jackson on my show. Mr. Jackson was a former MVP at the University of Washington football and later on Seahawks football. And currently he is a director at the YMCA. And I thought I would invite, I've never had an athlete on my show before, so it is with pleasure I am welcoming Mr. Michael Jackson onto Afternoons with Monique. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Monique. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I've never had an athlete on my show, and this is the first time, so I'm really excited to have you on. As with many other guests previously, we'd like to get to know your background a little bit. Where were you born, you know, where your family came from, and where you grew up, and how you got to become a UW football player. Let's start with where you were born and raised.
I was born and raised in Pasco, Washington, over in eastern Washington, the part of the Tri-Cities, over where the desert and the heat exist. So born there in 1957 to my parents, Ruth and Webster Jackson. Had two brothers, David and Rory. So I was the middle one. And sports just took a hold of me when I was a young kid. And I knew that I wanted to play football especially. We all played sports, but I made it my goal to make it to the pros. So I ended up, you know, going to high school and being a pretty good athlete. No, I was a star.
Yeah, I would imagine so, because I read your biography and one of the viewers responded to advertising saying they are really excited to watch our show because you came to his high school and speak with the students there, and he remember you being, you know, you're like his hero because of certain life-changing interception that won the Super Bowl. And so I'm hoping to touch on some of the, you know, legendary stories that I haven't had a chance to hear, but hopefully you will indulge us in, you know, sharing with us some of your past athletic history or legendary stories that I haven't had the opportunity to hear. So you went to high school here in Washington State, in Pasco, and you played. How tall are you? I mean, it's hard to tell, but how tall were you when you played pro football?
I was 6'2" when I played pro football. I grew up to be 6'2", and I weighed 225 pounds.
So, and you were a linebacker, so that I hear the expression build like a linebacker. So I always imagine linebacker, they must be huge and wide. Was that you back in the day? Or, I mean, I don't know what you look like, and I just see you from Jessup right now, but how big were you? Were you the typical linebacker that they talked about?
No, I was a small linebacker. I was a small football player. There were guys who were, one of my counterparts, Bruce Schultz, was about 6'6". He played on the other side of the line that I did. And here I am at 6'2". But there's a lot of it that has to do with what's in the heart. You know, it's not the dog in the fight, it's the fight in the dog.
That's why I hear. It's not the size of a dog in a fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you had a lot of fight in you, and maybe you still do today, which is why I have you on my show. So how did you get to the UW football, first of all, and you were there for 4 years, but how did you decide to go to the UW?
Growing up in Eastern Washington, I'm supposed to be a Cougar because you know, that's where Pullman is in Eastern Washington. And I was recruited by the University of Washington, and the coach was not so well regarded at that time. And the guys that were recruiting me told me, you know, don't come here, which was fine with me because I wanted to play for the Cougars.
Right.
So I went to visit the Cougars and just fell in love with the program. All they had to do was offer me a scholarship. Jim Sweeney was the coach there at the time, back in 1975. And he came and visited my home after my visit with the Cougars and told me I wasn't good enough to play for I wasn't good enough to play for the Cougars my first 2 years.
Right.
And my dad kindly asked him to go back to Pullman. And, I was going to go down to Oregon State or figure out something else. And then Don James got hired to replace Jim Owens, who was the coach here at Washington. James flew to Pasco. He was on his way to Oregon, stopped and told me that I'd have an opportunity to play if I was good enough to go to UW. And so it's like, okay, well, you're going to give me the chance to play where I know I'm going to sit on the bench here for 2 years. So I'll come up here and take my chances here. That's how I ended up being a Husky.
Wow. And you were a Husky pro football player for 4 years?
I was a Husky college football player for 4 years. Yeah.
Right.
Which coincidentally, you brought something up very important. I started as a freshman.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, why is that significant?
Because the other coach told me I couldn't play for 2 years.
Oh, okay. I see. That's great. The whole 4 years. And UW football is legendary for many years. I've never heard Wazoo being all that great. I mean, but I may be biased. I'm a UW. I'm a Husky through and through, so you can't blame me.
Go Dogs. Go Dogs.
Now tell us about that specific play or game that made history, supposedly, that the viewer who listened to my show mentioned in the comment that he had a certain experience that was just amazing. Can you tell us about that play?
Yeah, it was a 1978 Rose Bowl game. The Huskies were playing University of Michigan Wolverines. Going into the game, Michigan was 2 touchdown favorites to beat the crap out of the Huskies. The odds makers had buried us, died, walked away from the funeral home and all this other stuff. So the game starts up and we come out like there's nothing to lose. We've already lost the game, so we may as well go out here and play our butts off. We ended up getting up. We were up 27, or we were up 20-7 at halftime or something like that. Something ridiculous. I mean, we're just running over them, doing whatever we wanted to do. And then in the second half, they came out on fire and scored a couple of touchdowns on us. And it's getting down to the last part of the game, and they're driving for what could have been. We're up 27-20 now. It could have been the tying touchdown if they went for just 1 point field goal or the extra point, or they could have won the game with a 2-point extra point. Anyway, so they're down on our 10-yard line. It's a minute and 3 seconds left in the game. The quarterback rolls out to my side of the field. I'm covering the running back, and he throws the ball to the running back, and he bobbles it off of his head. The ball literally bounced off his head. And I'm going to go make the tackle, but I see when I'm ready to make the tackle, I saw, God, this ball is just sitting there. And so I grabbed it with one arm and intercepted it, fell to the ground, and that was the game, essentially. We ended up giving them the ball back, and then Nesby Glasgow intercepted their last pass. But people credit that bobble interception, which was, it's something that's maybe once in a lifetime that you get the opportunity to do something like that.
Right. And what happened to the game? What was the score at the end of the game?
27-20. Huskies win.
Yay.
Yep. We shocked the world.
And the Super Bowl. Won the Super Bowl.
No, it's the Rose Bowl.
Oh, the Rose Bowl. Sorry.
It's the granddaddy of them all. So it's kind of like the Super Bowl to us.
Right.
Yep.
That's awesome. Now, how did you get drafted to the Seahawks team? Tell us about that, please.
Back when I was playing, this was 1979 when I got drafted. Your name is entered into a pool of players, and they pull whoever they want out of whatever it is. So the Seahawks drafted Manu Tuiasosopo first, then Joe Norman, and I had played against both of those guys. Manu went to UCLA, Joe went to Indiana, and then after they drafted Joe, a couple of calls later, they had another pick, and they picked me as linebacker. And it was like, I was disappointed because I thought I was going to go to Houston, but then when I got the call, I was like, dang, I don't have to go anywhere. I'm going to stay in Seattle. And so the reporters kind of joked that they could see me walking across the water to hurry up and get over to from Seattle over to Kirkland, where the Seahawks were stationed at the time. So I ended up playing. I ended up playing 8 years, and again, I started as a rookie. I won a position in my rookie year, and I ended up playing 8 years. My last year, I played pretty well beat up, but it's one of those things that any athlete knows that you're going to get hurt. It's not how you're going to get hurt, but when.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What do you think about Tom Brady playing at 43?
You know what, Monique, I'm not even.
I'm just teasing you a little bit here, just to poke the hornet a little bit, because clearly, you just stated your opinion about that. So, okay, well, we'll let that one go. So we midway into the show. You're on Rainier Avenue Radio, and this is Monique Lee, your host on Afternoons with Monique. Today, I have the pleasure to invite on my show Michael Jackson, another famous Michael Jackson, right here locally. He played UW Pro Football and 8 years with the Seahawks, and he is here to not only share with me, because I've never known that much about football, and also my audience like to hear a variety of different topics, and so I'm inviting my first athlete, pro athlete on my show, and he's going to share with us not only his past glorious football career, but also what he's currently working on in the community. So, Mr. Michael Jackson, welcome back to Afternoons with Monique.
Thanks, Monique.
So we talked very briefly about Seahawks so far, and you play for the Seahawks for 8 years. What is the MVP status? Can you tell the ignorance among us, like myself, what that means, and how does a player get to achieve that status?
Basically, it comes from your performance on the football field, and there's a couple of awards that you can win, and the fans are people who vote on it. So they have Seahawkers clubs, and they get together and they decide who's had the best season, who's had the most impact on the team, the best. Whether it's defense or offensive, and it's a vote by the fans. And it's one of those things that's really, you feel good when you win one of those, because they are very critical, especially Seattle fans. They're really smart. There's a lot of talk when you watch a Seahawks game that they talk how smart those fans are, and they haven't gotten any stupider. They're still up there. They're still up there.
Yeah, they watch the game, they know who's good, and they vote for their favorite players.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to be pretty good, and you were MVP. Is that like each year you vote into this club, or is that once you achieve the status, you in a Hall of Fame kind of like of a record?
Yeah, I'm not in any Hall of Fame there. It's just I got it one time with the Seahawks, and I was happy to get that, and I thank the fans and whoever voted for me for that award. Getting into the Hall of Fame is a whole new step. So
right. See, I have no idea about this, but to me, MVP status sound like an excellent place to be. But you had been inducted to the Pasco High School Hall of Fame in 1996, and Central Washington's Hall of Fame in 2000, and University of Washington Hall of Fame in 2000. So you're definitely in some Hall of Fames here.
Yep. I'm very proud of all of those too. I was hoping to get into the College Hall of Fame. That would have been my dream, but I had to be an All-American, a first-team All-American, and I ended up being a second-team and a third-team All-American for college football. But that's the one that got away.
Right. And I understand that you also dabble in the movies. You've been in 15 movies so far.
Yep.
And you were a celebrity host for March of Dimes a couple of times.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Now tell us what you are currently working on in your, second career, I would say.
Yeah. What I'm doing now is I'm a director of philanthropy at the YMCA of Greater Seattle. And my job is to help fund the programs. I work for a division called Social Impact Center. And what we do there is we provide services to kids who are under-resourced, who are marginalized, who are homeless, kids and families who need mental health therapy, they need drug and alcohol treatment, they need all of these services. We've got kids who have been abandoned by their folks, so they need foster parents and foster care. And then there's kids who are looking for resources, needing job skills, needing to figure out how to get my education taken care of, get back in with community. And so my job is to find funding with the other part of my teams to allow these services to go through and be available for those kids who are looking for those services.
And now you do this work with the YMCA downtown on 4th Avenue, right?
On 4th Avenue, correct. Yep.
Now that's a pretty prominent YMCA. I think that's a pretty big building with a lot of services offered. I had never had the opportunity to attend one of their charity or fundraisers, but with my contact here, maybe I'll get invited one of these days.
You can bet you will. That's my job.
All right. So folks, if you want to help the YMCA and these at-risk youth, you definitely want to log in and find Michael Jackson, Director of Philanthropy, by Googling his name and his programs and see how you can contribute to his cause and our cause in the community. Yeah. We have about maybe 5 or 7 minutes left on the show. Tell us what have you been working on in order to raise awareness? And you just started with the YMCA recently, within the last year, right?
Yeah, I started right before COVID hit, 2 weeks before COVID hit. Yeah, I was with another agency called Nexus Youth and Families down in Auburn, and we got bought out by the Y. We were in financial troubles and we needed some help, so we started looking for a partner, and we talked to the Y, and the Y did their due diligence on us and decided we were a good risk to take on. So they brought the whole agency over, and very grateful for that.
So since you retired from football, which was, I believe, in 1986.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, and until now, what have you done in terms of, well, you dabble in the movies, you were in 15 movies, and you were helping the community in the role of celebrity, what is this title? I forgot, sorry.
Celebrity golf host.
Yes, Marsha Dimes, celebrity host, and you contributed to a lot of causes in the community. But between 1986 until now, what other things outside of those did you do more in the nonprofits?
I did nonprofits. I worked for construction companies. I taught at a private school in Seattle.
You teach?
I taught 3rd grade.
Oh, really?
Talk about a tough job. I did that for 2 years. I don't think I've done anything that tough. That was I mean, those kids used to beat me up. It was unbelievable. I thought I was all big and bad. I ain't big and bad. Those kids are. So
remind me of this movie with Dwayne Johnson and the little kids that he tried to teach, and as big as this guy was, they beat him up.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome. You've been trying, you work in the community in so many great roles, and I'm sure these are great experiences in your life that you must be proud of, and I'm sure you enjoy the trials and tribulation of them all. So at this point in your role as a director of philanthropy for the YMCA, how can we help promote your cause effectively, as a host at Rainier Avenue Radio? How can I help?
I think you're doing it here, because I haven't asked you to do any of this, but you've let people know that if they're willing to, that they can contact me at the Y and make a donation or volunteer to help us do the work that we're doing. So anytime you get the opportunity, Monique, to say, hey, if you've got a free, you got a free can of food, or if you got this, you got a free weekend or something like that, why don't you give Michael a call, check him out on email, and I'm sure he can come up with something for you. So anything you can do to promote this and give me the opportunity, if you've got some space where I can come on and do a public service announcement, let me know and I'll be there.
That's wonderful. With COVID, I'm sure a lot of the fundraising activities have been curbed. So how do you promote the Y at this point?
We've been remote for, 17 months. I mean, since it hit, we've been remote, and I've been in Seattle exactly 4 times since COVID. And
Right.
then all of our meetings are just like you and I right now, remote. And so I think that society has gotten used to that. And so when we get ready to go back, now that the restrictions, well, they were easing up, they're going to come back, but a little bit. But I think that everybody's kind of used to being remote. And, we either cherish it or we dread it, because we don't know if, what it's going to feel like to get out there in the streets anymore. But we've learned a lot. We put on events remotely. In fact, we're working on one right now, AK Guy Awards, which honors people who have given through volunteerism to the Y, and shown that through community, we can accomplish anything. So we've got that event coming up in September, and that's where a lot of our focus is right now.
Oh, very cool. So how can people find out more information about this event?
If you're willing to, or you can give them my email address, which is majackson@seattleymca.org.
Very good, very good. And if you guys missed that, you can certainly contact Rainier Avenue Radio or Afternoons with Monique, and we'll be happy to pass that Michael Jackson's information on, so you can contribute and help the Y support at-risk youths. So we're coming up to the tail end of our show. I'm really glad that I have a chance to invite you on today. This is very interesting that our common friends had introduced us, and it's for to this, and we must stay in touch. I have a little daughter who is 17 years old, and she's been asking me to help her find volunteer opportunities to, so that she can learn about how to, she's a little bit sheltered, but I think that it's good for her to go out there and help the people and be a part of the community. So maybe I can find a role. I mean, the Y downtown is a little bit far. We live in North Seattle. So how would she volunteer with you if she wants to?
We have branches throughout Seattle, throughout the King County metro area. So I believe Del Turner is up that way. And there's a branch in North Shore. There's a branch in Bothell. I live on the east side. I live in Kirkland. So I commute whenever I go, whenever it is that we go. But I can find a way, trust me.
All right. All right. Well, I will stay in touch and see how we can help contribute to your cause. You're on Afternoons with Monique. I'm Monique Lee, your host, and Michael Jackson, former Seahawks pro football player, UW Pro Football, and now Director of Philanthropy at the YMCA, is on my show today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Michael, and sharing with us what you're doing and what you were doing before that led you here today. So you have a great afternoon, and I will see you around soon. Goodbye, everybody.